viewers, Rectangular back, this time with another review. Here from Mcfarlane Toys we have the Dark Ages Spawn, the Samurai Wars Scorpion Assassin. This is from their Ultra Action Figures line. This came out, looks like, in 2001, and obviously you can tell this is a pretty old, beat up in the package figure. And yeah, the card is pretty yellow. It's got some dog ears there at the top. So they are becoming a little bit more difficult to find in pristine condition because of the age of the figure. Here we have the back of the figure packaging with the figure highlighted in a photo on the upper left hand corner, and then we have some other figures from the Spawn Samurai Wars figure line. I think they had maybe about 8 or so figures in the line. I'm not exactly sure. I only have a couple of them, and most of them were more statues than action figures, which is pretty typical for Mcfarlane Toys. Here we have the figure out of the packaging, and overall it's a pretty damn good figure, especially for Mcfarlane Toys, which are not known for great articulation. I think at the time Mcfarlane was really touting the amount of articulation that this line and these handful of figures really had, so I do think that they pulled it off pretty well with the amount of sculpted detail that this figure has. You know, in the past you're only just going to get cut joints from Mcfarlane, and they did some pretty decent engineering. It is a little bit on the clunky side. It is hidden well with the armor, but yeah, they still in 2001 they needed to be stepping up the game a lot more than they did. But it's overall it's a pretty decent figure. As you can see, he can't quite hold the sword properly like the way he's supposed to. You know, they instruct you that he's supposed to be able to hold it this way with both hands, but the pose is just a little too awkward, and I don't want to bend or torque the sword handle if I don't have to. So not a big deal, but you know, I figured I'd show that right off the bat. Let's get the figure turned to the side, and on the back, just a lot of really nice sculpted detail, a lot of really good paint as well. Different shades of blues and grays and browns all throughout the figure. Almost every surface has got texture on it or some sort of paint shading. So you know, that's where Mcfarlane Toys really excelled, was the amount of sculpted and painted detail. Really hard to beat nowadays. Diamond Select comes close, and NECA comes close, but this is really, really well done. And you can see this faux fur at the bottom skirt piece there that I think really sells the level of detail there. You can see all the different spikes there on his legs. Very, very cool. The left foot looks a little bit bigger than the right foot, so I don't know if that was by design or what. I can get that in the light there, but very, very cool. You can see the skull that's sculpted into his chest on the armor. Little tassels are painted blue, turquoise. It's really nice. This armor piece is hanging off the belt. Very cool. These pieces are individual. And yeah, helmet really well done as well. Just a very cool looking figure. So it does come with this really nice sword. It's quite large. Get it out of his hand without breaking it. Breaking the figure. Put him off to the side. So very well sculpted and painted. It's got like wrapped rope there for the handle. Some nice kind of wash there on the blade. Some blood grooves there. Just a very nice looking sword. And then the helmet is removable. This is one of the really unfortunate things about the figure, is that even though you can remove the helmet, it does have a peg, and so he does have a hole in the center of his forehead there for the peg to attach to keep the helmet on his head, which I didn't really think that was necessary. I think they could have probably put some notches there in the top that were just sculpted, and added some notches on the inside of the helmet, and that probably would have pulled it off. And I don't think you're going to be banging around this guy too much anyway, so don't know why they had to go with such a huge peg to go into his forehead there. But as a closer look at the helmet, it's extremely well sculpted. Really, really nice there. Well painted as well. Very cool. And let's get a closer look at the head on the figure. It's kind of like a zombie type character. I'm not familiar with the comic book or what the whole story is behind this guy. If he's supposed to be a demon or possessed human or what. Let's get into the articulation a little bit. The head does have just a cut joint there at the neck, so not great there. He can just pretty much just pivot side to side a little bit, and the hair gets in the way a little. It is kind of a softer rubber material, so that's nice that it is flexible, but the armor, just the way that the neck is sculpted, it's just very pointed forward there, so not the best as far as, he cannot look up and down at all. The armor pieces are kind of glued on at the back, so there's nothing holding them on the front, so you can peel them back a little bit, then you can expose these funky joints there. So he's got kind of like a double jointed elbow. It's really odd. So it's just kind of a pivot joint at the top, and then it's got a double joint, kind of like a knee would look, a double jointed knee would look there. So that's how the arm can go 90. But if the armor is lifted up, you're going to see that crazy joint there. So the articulation is there if you really want it, but it's going to look horrible because he's going to look like a robot there with the exposed joints. And then he does have a bicep swivel. So you can go 360 at the bicep, and then single jointed elbow, which will allow him to get 90 degrees there. So very funky, clunky articulation. It does work, but without the armor to cover it up, it just looks really bizarre. On the figure's right side, you have the same articulation, but the sculpt is a little bit tighter there for this piece of armor, so I can't really, I'd have to pull on it pretty hard to expose the joint, but it is the same. You can see it from underneath, I don't know. There, that kind of shows it, but so again, you get bicep swivel. It does raise up there with that crazy joint, and it's got a single jointed elbow, and at the wrist there's just a swivel, which is pretty frustrating for trying to get him to hold the sword properly in too many poses. So just a swivel there, no hinge, so that's kind of a letdown there. It does have a waist joint, and it is kind of has a little bit of play as far as back and forth and side to side, but not really much. But you can rotate 360 if you want him to, and it does bang up against the belt just a little bit. And then these pieces here, I guess these armor pieces hang off the belt, it looks like. Yeah. And then this fur is kind of thick, and you can lift that up and show his legs. It does have looks like a T-joint there at the crotch, and with the upper thigh rotation. So he does get very good leg. He can do the splits basically. Actually, you can do the Van Damme, so that's kind of cool. And then they do kick pretty high, very high actually, for all that armor that he has on and that furry skirt. So very, very good articulation for Mcfarlane figure. I mean, God, most Marvel Legends don't have this kind of leg rotation, range of motion. And he has a single joint at the knee, so not too far back because the pants are pretty puffy in the back there, so that's going to hinder the motion there. And it does not look like it's got a rotation there at the knee, just a single hinge. And then at the ankle, just a hinge, and it is kind of sculpted at an angle, so it does kind of force you to have him with a wider stance to stand. Same articulation on the other side, so I'm not going to go into that. The range of motion is pretty damn good, at least on this foot, as far as going up, but not as much down, because he's got this big armor piece on the back of his ankle. So pretty damn good for Mcfarlane Toys figure, and he's already shedding a ton of the fur from his skirt. So let's put his helmet back on. There you go. And give him his sword back. Don't know if he can really hold it that well in the left hand. I guess he can hold it somewhat. Not too bad in the left hand as well. So pretty damn good figure. I'm hoping to do a review of the Jackal Assassin next, so if you're interested, stay tuned for that. And hopefully you guys like the video, share with your friends, subscribe if you haven't already, and I always love hearing back from you guys, so please leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.
That's crispy.